And just a little bit about tonight's presenter. Shayna is a visionary in the world of arts, health, and community building. She strives to be the driving force behind a paradigm shift in the art and wellness industry where creativity, self care, and community engagement converge synergistically, creating a ripple effect of inspiration, innovation, and social responsibility that attracts like minded collaborators and visionaries. Above all else, Shayna intends to ignite inspiration, spark joy, and facilitate transformative experiences that enrich lives. And if you have ever seen Shayna's AI work, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, then you are certainly in for a treat. And without further ado, I present Shayna.
Thank you, Zawadi. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight as we go over Beginner's Blueprint, Navigating Savings and Investments, a Beginner's Guide. Now, while this topic may seem very actually basic and 101, it's such an important conversation to have, especially now where things are changing. That what we place value on is definitely adjusting and changing in our personal and then also in our professional lives. Additionally, even though we may already have some concepts around savings and investments, and maybe, just maybe, we even have some of these accounts, I would love to hear from the community how many of us are actually taking action and have a strategy towards this. So if you already have an active strategy in regards to savings, I want you to drop a 1 in the comment box. If you have an investment account that you actively invest in, I want you to drop a number 2. So 1, if you have an active strategy for saving. So not just that you have a savings account. Like me, for a very long time, my first accounts were at Chase, well, actually Washington Mutual before it was Chase, out in New York. And I've had both accounts, but I never put anything in my savings account. I only use my checking account. If you have an active strategy, meaning that you're putting away some sort of money into a savings account, or even if you're holding cash on your person, I want you to drop a 1. And if you're investing into an investment account, I want you to drop a number 2 if you have an active strategy. We are going to go over some fundamentals, and then I would love to talk about my own personal testimony, because what happens is that we hear these things, but we don't really know how to take action for ourselves. Maybe because we don't fully understand the concepts of the investing and or saving, or maybe it's because it could be challenging. I mean, what happens when we use one of these accounts? How do they get replenished when our strategies go awry, or maybe things just don't work out as expected? And so let's talk about the overview for this conversation. So we're going to speak on the introduction. So this is just basic 101 fundamentals of savings and investments. We got basic savings and investment strategies for you, and then developing savings and investment strategies. So we'll go over quite a few of those. And for those of you who have your young adults around, even children, so I'm not going to exclude any ages, because every child is also different too in their concept of understanding. Many of us have actually had piggy banks before, right? And so when we were young, and so that might still be a practice that you have at home right now. I know I do that with my 9-year-old niece. So would love to talk to our kids about this as well, and how to have these conversations with our family, with our young adults. All right, so we got savings and investments. So very plain put, saving involves setting aside money for short-term goals or emergencies. It's typically low-risk accounts like a savings account or a CD account, a certificate deposit, which you can also purchase or open at a bank. While investing involves putting money into assets with the expectation of generating returns over a long period of time. It often comes with higher risk, but potentially higher rewards, such as stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. Okay, so the question becomes, do you have one or the other, or both? And which should you have, one or the other, or both? My answer is always going to be both. because it really depends on what goals we have. But because savings usually would cover something called a short-term expense, it's really great when you have money that's readily accessible to put towards an expense that you may or may not have expected. Okay, so with a savings account, it provides, the benefits are is that it provides a secure and accessible way to store money, right? If we don't keep cash on us, we put it into our account. It also offers a peace of mind for emergencies for those short-term goals, right? So think about a time or an expense that you may have had or is possible to have in the future that you want to make sure you have the cost covered for, right? So some of our essential needs, we have food, we have shelter, we have clothing, we have water, things of that nature. But let's just take shelter, for example, right? We got rent, we got mortgage. Even some of us may have car insurance if we drive as well, right? So these are reoccurring expenses that we have that we want to make sure are covered. Many of us may use our checking account to cover these expenses currently. But what happens if we get laid off of work, which happened to a lot of Americans not too long ago with the pandemic, correct? So what happens when we have an unexpected change in how we are regularly paid or our regular income, and these reoccurring expenses that don't stop even when our lifestyle changes? How do we cover the cost? It's really peaceful to know that if you are setting money aside into a short-term savings account, that if anything happens, you may be covered for potentially up to a couple of months while you figure out what is the next steps for you in returns of having reoccurring income, right? Some of the drawbacks of having a savings account, though, is that it provides very low interest rates. Okay, so interest rates is money paid regularly at a particular rate, and generally, bank savings accounts offers a very low rate of return, especially in comparison to something as an investment account, which we'll go over in a second. It's also a slower growth in funds over time. If you're getting a lower interest rate on your savings account, obviously it's going to be much more challenging to grow that money over time, especially if it's the bank that's matching that regular payment rate, right? You can put more money into it. However, it doesn't compound as much compared to something as an investment account. So if we look to our right with an investment account, some of the benefits is that we get higher returns over a long period of time. So usually with an investment account, we can think long term. Some people do use it for short term growth as well, but we also can use it for long-term growth, and it generally is used for long-term growth, right? So we have higher returns over a longer period of time, and we're able to grow wealth through various asset classes. So there's a wide array of investment accounts that you can opt into. It really goes by what makes the most sense for you. If you do not have an investment account, we're also going to talk about just to name a few, some of the top that you can just research and look over, because of course, there's no financial advice here. I'm not a professional. I'm just talking about personal testimony and what has worked for me. And this is based on the common class. This is what people generally do. You have at least one or two investment accounts so that your money can grow at a higher return over a long period of time, and with the potential to actually generate wealth through having various asset classes. Some of the drawbacks is going to be inherent risk, the possibility of losing money. Okay, so that depends on the conditions of the market, right? So when we're talking about investments, again, you might hear the terms stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or index accounts. You're going to hear various terms in which you are investing your money into these accounts, and that money is compounded with interest, but something may happen in the economy which causes the price that the rate of your money started to grow at to drop, right? So if any one of us, or many of us, I'm sure in this room, was around during our big last market crash, which was in 2008, okay? And even some people in this room, I can only imagine, lost a lot of money within that. Yeah. So while things like that happen periodically at such a grand scale, the benefits of investing long term still holds greater value, even with the inherent risk of losing money. Okay. So aside from that, is just really understanding your risk tolerance. And risk tolerance is, it could be low, it could be high. Maybe you don't mind putting in lots of money into an investment account because you rather more money that you put in to compound more interest over time, versus maybe putting money in once and then just letting that money compound and not adding in anything beyond that point, right? So in either account, savings account or an investment account, you could continue to place money inside of the account to yourself while accruing interest. But it really depends on your risk tolerance or your risk adversity when it comes to an investment account. Simply understanding that market conditions can be a contributing factor to how much money you're able to withdraw and walk away with when you're ready to. Moving on to developing simple savings and investment strategies. Something that's really easy to do is to open a savings or an investment account. It's very easy to do either or. But what happens is that a lot of times we open these accounts and then forget about them. We never see them again, right? We don't touch them. We don't actively work with them, and we don't have a strategy. So what's really great to do is right in the beginning is to automate a specific amount of money that you want to continue to contribute to either your savings account or your investment account. So when it comes to automating your savings, you can consider setting up an automatic transfer from your checking account into your savings account. Especially think about the days that you get paid. If it's you get paid every Friday, bi-weekly, or you get paid on the 1st to the 15th, whatever the case may be, that's in that same date that you get paid, you can also pick an amount of money that you want to be transferred into your savings automatically. You don't even have to do it yourself. There's no manual labor there. Similarly, you can do the same thing with an investment account, which is pretty cool too. Some things to consider when we're talking about an investment account is to at least have a retirement account. And retirement accounts are generally known as a 401k or a Roth IRA. And those two, you could have money transferred directly from your paycheck into those accounts. So for a lot of us who are full-time workers with an employer, they'd offer a 401k at least to set up a retirement account for you. And not only do they offer the setup of this account, but they also offer sometimes to match the amount that you actually put into the account. So that's pretty awesome too. So that's additional money that you get to accrue. And again, that comes directly out of your paycheck. You don't have to think about it, but at least you have a strategy, and at least we're being active about making sure that money is constantly being funneled into these accounts so that we can cover our bases, especially in the near future. One thing that is important to mention tonight is to consider cryptocurrency as an investment option as well, because again, we're in a new era. Things are changing. We now are having more and more conversations in regards to this crypto. And I think one of the main things that the main cryptocurrencies that we hear about often is going to be something like a Bitcoin, right? That is a cryptocurrency. That is something that actually has value, especially when we're traveling outside of the country. Believe it or not, there's places that don't even take paper money anymore, fiat. You actually have to go to an exchange to actually get paper money if you're going to use paper money somewhere else, because cryptocurrency is absolutely a valid piece of currency. It has value. You can trade goods or services using crypto. So it's really great to think about obtaining some crypto, which you can do so if you were to check out Coinbase is going to be one space that you can purchase some crypto using your dollars, using your fiat to purchase some crypto, in addition to even apps like Cash App. Cash App offers that you can deposit some of your funds, and then you can make purchases into crypto, even something like Bitcoin, right? So obviously, we missed the boat on getting a whole share of crypto unless you have close to $50,000 for an entire share. But nonetheless, you can still own some Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies. So Cash App is one space to check that out. And so is Coinbase, or you may have even heard of an exchange called Robinhood or an app called Robinhood. I would highly recommend that you take a look at that and even owning that because it has value. Okay. If any of these terms feel or seem new to you, one other thing that I'm going to encourage is that you learn and grow with a community that's having these conversations. And when it comes to speaking to our kids about savings, we start with things like a piggy bank, right? Just depositing change inside of a piggy bank and saving money. For any parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles that's in a room, even if you drop an additional quarter, 50 cents, 75 cents inside of that piggy bank each month, just to show how interest rates work, right? And how that can accrue into a savings or investment account. It's really great to begin to have these conversations right now with kids about what happens when they put their money aside and for some goal, they put their money to the side for some goal and are able to actually save their coins and their money. It's very fun, and kids actually love it. If you ask me, my niece is a great saver, so she sees money and she just drops in her piggy bank, and that's a win for her. So it's not. And then when she's ready to spend on something, like if she hears in the summertime, this is a thing. That ice cream truck goes, and then she already knows that she can go to her own piggy bank. She don't gotta ask nobody for money to get some ice cream. The only thing she needs to ask for is for someone to walk her out to the street. She already understands that she has a source, a space that she can go to grab money to exchange her value for an ice cream cone, something that she wants. For us, we want to learn and grow within a community that empowers us to continue to learn and grow and make smart financial decisions. Because even thinking about, again, just referring back to comments about crypto, this is new. So instead of being fearful of or avoidant of any type of new currencies, especially digital currencies, because there's more than just crypto, by the way. Instead of being fearful of or avoidance of any of these new conversations, we want to be in and a part of these conversations. We actually want to pioneer the pathways in these conversations as well, as much as possible, because it's such a new space and we have the opportunity to. So the faster that we jump on it and we start to understand the fundamentals, and we're willing to reskill and upskill ourselves so that we can continue on learning about it as this grows, we are at an advantage. And it's also helpful in continue to build that generational wealth. Lastly, I just wanted to give an example of an investment firm that actually I started with, and this was from my employer. My employer was the one to introduce me to a retirement account, and I started with a 401k there. So this is Charles Schwab. There's quite a few other firms that you could look into, like Vanguard, like Fidelity. But again, I chose Charles Schwab as my personal testimony. So in the first box there with the number 1, just know that they have a range of goals. So you want to identify a goal when you're looking at opening up an investment account. You want to have a goal, right? So maybe you're saving up to buy a home, maybe you're saving up to buy a car, maybe you just want to do a long-term account like a 401k or an IRA. So first you want to identify what your goal is, what you're saving for or investing in. And Charles Schwab has a brokerage account that can help save and invest in a broad range of goals. Okay, their one brokerage account, it allows you to invest in everything from stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. And again, once you set this up the first time, this is not something that you constantly have to manage manually. They manage it for you, which is great. But you do want to check in regularly, if it's once a month or even once a quarter, to see how your accounts are doing. Number 2, we have a retirement account. So we have tax-advantaged accounts that can help you invest for your retirement needs. We have Roth IRAs, which is another option of another tax-advantaged account. So it allows you to invest. It allows you to invest after tax dollars, and qualified distributions are tax-free. So that's pretty cool, because that's another thing to look out for, is to understand when your money and if your money is going to be taxed for opening these accounts. Then we have education. So this is especially important for parents who have kids in school right now, students, or even students that's going into college and looking at how they can save themselves in terms of their money. It's tax advantage accounts that can help you save and invest for educational expenses. So think about those books, think about your commuter ride, Imagine being able to have tax advantage money that you can use for the things that you need throughout your school years. Okay, there's an account called a 529 college savings plan, which allows you to save for college itself, and qualified distributions are tax free as well. And then finally, a traditional IRA is another. It allows you to invest in pre-tax dollars for tax-deferred growth. I've also had a very similar account as well, which I use specifically for my commuting plan living in New York. I used pre-tax dollars to actually make my purchase for my MetroCard, which is awesome. You don't have to use your own money. You could actually use pre-tax dollars by setting yourself up the proper account. So these are just a few accounts to name. Again, you're going to see a lot of these accounts are very similar. Even if you check out Charles Schwab's alternatives or competitors, Fidelity and Vanguard, you're going to find a lot of the same accounts here. But you know what I love about the Charles Schwab site, though? It's very layman terms in breaking down the strategies in which to invest, how to invest, and what to consider. I love it for myself, but then also too, just thinking about, again, our teenagers, our young adults that we have in our homes, our nieces and our nephews, just having these conversations about how important it is, or just how to set up a really great strategy. Charles Schwab does a really great job there.
Thank you so much, Shayna. That was a great presentation. And as everybody in the audience knows, we've been really honing in on finance, how we can invest, not necessarily what to invest in, but and it may seem like we're repeating the same thing over and over again, but research has found that when we're dealing with money, you need to hear things over and over and over again. And this is a great presentation because Shayna really went through the basics. And Shayna, I know that you mentioned a few things, but how are you using these as your personal strategy beyond the things that you talked about?
In regards to not only wanting to be able to save and invest money, but in my current, what was my pre-current condition was that I also had a lot of debt at the same time. So I couldn't understand how I could do all of these things on top of paying for the expenses, because it really feels like I can't save or invest unless I have more money to do that. And it doesn't work that way. So one strategy that was very helpful for me was, first and foremost, we absolutely have to have a savings account for emergencies. I'll even say an emergency fund if it's not a savings account. My strategy was to build an emergency fund for if anything happens, that my basis was covered. Especially I'm responsible for other living things with my big old dog, right? So even something as small as that, being a pet owner, if you're a pet owner, you know what the vet bills could be like. So it was really important for me to have an emergency fund. So I aggressively saved, and this was financial advice that I received, $2,000 as fast as I possibly could. And then right after, I aggressively began to pay off my debt. And there is something called a snowball effect. If you haven't heard of it, I would highly recommend that you look it up on a YouTube, or you can even Google it if you prefer to read. You can read about it as well. But it's a really cool strategy about how to pay off your debt. Not only in a much more simpler process, but it also gives you some mental satisfaction with it too, which is good, because usually when we're on the topic of money, and if we're talking about debt, or if we're talking about having more money, it could actually stress you out. So we want to avoid that. It's nice to actually have a process in place called the snowball effect that can help you pay down your debt aggressively. And then once I was able to at least cut off one of the cards that I had this debt on, I then began to start placing that money into either my actual savings account inside of my bank, and I also did something called dollar cost averaging into one of my investment accounts. Okay, so that is an automated, regular, and consistent plan of a certain amount of money that I'm constantly putting both into my savings account and into my investment account. Aside from doing that regularly, that's still the plan. That's the strategy. And I don't have to think about it. That's why automation is so great. The only thing that I have to do is to go back and look over my portfolio being all of the accounts that you actually are investing in, because you'll find that you'll end up investing into at least 2 to 3 accounts or more versus just having one account. The only other thing I do now is I'll collect pennies, like even pennies that I pass on the street. I'm picking those up and I'm putting that in the jar first because again, I have a 9-year-old niece, so we talk about savings. She has a piggy bank. I have a piggy bank as well. So we're both collecting coins and we're putting that money inside, and then we're creating a goal that we want to use that money towards. And my goal is to use all of the pennies that I collect, turn it into cash, and then continue to invest into these accounts. So as new accounts come, especially in crypto, and they start at very small amounts, it's so easy to put $1 into something that a company or an organization that you believe has good values, has a great vision, has a great mission, and support them by even adding $1 into that account, and then you get a nice return on investment from that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the notion of savings, but also speaking to our kids about that, right? Like when Bitcoin went down to 15,000 just a few months ago, I was going to a baptismal engagement, and I gifted, a certain amount, and that was at 15. Now I just got a call from the parents to say, "Oh my God, my child's gift is now at this amount. I can't believe it." Kids, when we start doing that at such a young age, I mean, kids can really appreciate and start asking questions. Well, what is this? If you like Nike, I want you to own it. If you like Alter, I want you to own it. If you like gaming, own some GameStop, be the owner of it, be the consumer of it. And if we start planting those seeds early, whew, it's magical.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that and bringing that up. I think that's important.
Shayna, in terms of having a piggy bank, I remember I used to keep a piggy bank, but I also had a little spreadsheet next to my, well, it was just a plain piece of paper. But every time I put money in there, I would keep track of how much was in there. So I even knew how much was in my piggy bank. So,
Ooh.
so that might be another thing that they're also monitoring how they're saving.
Yeah.
So right next to the piggy bank, I used to have a little sheet, 25 cents. I just added 25 cents a day. And now I know how much I've, collected in a week or whatever. So that was one of the little tricks I used to do when I was a little kid.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's actually a nice touch too, Robin. Thank you for sharing that. Because it's so fun for kids. It's like it's almost a completely different experience from being an adult and doing this
Mhm.
than being a kid and doing this. Especially kids manifest money in so many kinds of ways. They don't even really have to ask for it, right? They get money in birthday cards. You get money when your teeth fall out. You get, you find change. You just get some change, and they're so happy to put in that piggy bank. But then to even count it too, and the younger, like the earlier, the better. Kids understanding to count their money, to understand how much they have, how much something costs when they spend that much, how much they have left over, and then to just adding in that other piece where, again, I'll drop a quarter into my niece's piggy bank just to give her something a little extra to talk about what interest could look like. It really helps model and shape their mindset about money. Our kids won't grow up with the same fearful mindset that some of us acquire sometimes through what happens in the world that makes this a contributing factor. That determinant factor is really giving them the confidence and understanding how to manage their own money and then make really good decisions based off of what they have.